Well, good evening, Glue Troopers, and welcome back to the TARDIS. And I thought tonight we'd have a cold one, and I would talk about a few things for a few minutes that are going on with the Felixstowe and other stuff. First off, I want to thank Mr. Eric. He's here in Florida. He sent me this book, The Golden Age of Air Racing, and it is a cornucopia of knowledge, should enhance our air racing series substantially. Now, one of the things that I want to do is probably change the format a wee bit. Instead of me sitting in front of the camera like I am now and trying to keep everything straight off of Cliff Notes, I'll probably script a little more, and I mean, it'll still be a conversational tone sort of thing, but it'll be more voiceover. I'll probably, you know, do the intro in person and everything, but I'll be reading more voicing over pictures because, let's face it, you're here to get the information on the airplanes, and I'll use the models where they're appropriate. Once I'm done with this one on Matty Laird, I'll probably go right into Jimmy Waddell and the Waddell Williams aircraft, because that I wanted to do that after I had the model fixed, so I could at least use one model. I don't have a model of any of Laird's aircraft, although models of the Solution and the Super Solution are out there. But thanks to Mr. Eric, I'm really looking forward to getting into this. It's going to be a great resource. And I also will tonight be using some in my cell phone gallery just to keep my thoughts straight, because last night I made took a couple of pictures that I didn't use because I forgot to mention them when I started talking, because, as you know, this thing's pretty much off the cuff. Oh, by the way, you guys have noticed I haven't put out any morning shows, so we've got some things going on here that are taking up some of my time, so that's all that is. Since I am on that subject about changes in time, since I put my trip to Tallahassee off until next week, I think I should be able to do a live stream on Saturday, and we'll tentatively plan on 2 o'clock East Coast time, and that will just be the same old thing, and we'll just chat. I did have a desire to go out to the RC Club and fly if the weather's good in the morning, but I'd get back in plenty of time. I thought about getting some of these trash rockets ready and shooting another video, but that's kind of a production because I have to drive a long way up to where I shoot the rockets. There is a field nearby I might give a shot to, pardon the pun, but it's a lot smaller. However, with these little C-motor rockets, I don't think they're going to drift off too far. Now, I'm using my gallery mode here because here's what I wanted to talk about. First off, this is all in reference to the Felixstowe. I thought the gun sights were small on the for the forward sight, the ring sight on the Lewis guns on the Felixstowe. Then I realized there's these little rear sights, and it's like the sight's backwards. It's like normally a sight, you know, you have the ring. You think of like looking through a peep sight, and then there's the post out front. But these aircraft sights in these days are the opposite. The post was at the rear and the ring was out forward, probably to increase your peripheral vision since you had to leave the target so much. But those rear sights are really tiny. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to get them on. But the thing is, there's already a post there, so it really adds very little to the look of the thing. You'd have to know exactly what you're looking for and go look for it to see it. That being said, I finished the plumbing, and some of these parts of the plumbing, I outsmarted myself. I said, you know what, I'm going to pre-assemble these because that's going to be really tricky to get together once I'm in the model. So this is a 2-piece unit, the split pipes and are separate from the big curve pipe on top. So I got it all done ahead of time. Great. Started putting the model and realized that the reason they did it that way is there's a pipe that goes between those two split pipes. So I wound up having to cut one of them open to get it, and the whole thing turned to a mess, and it had already been painted, so you're dealing with touching it with glue that made the paint want to dissolve, and it was copper paint. But I did manage to salvage it. It was just, I just outsmarted myself and made more work for myself than it had to be, although that was going to be a little tricky either way. The whole system is starting to come together. This is all the detailed cockpit, and I swear I'm halfway inclined to leave the cockpit out of the airplane and make it its own separate display, because this airplane has just got an insane amount of detail on the inside that you're not going to see once the airplane's put together. However, there are some rather large hatches, so you will be seeing some of it. I probably won't do that. If I was going to do that, I would fully rig it, because they do have in the instructions how to use 0.15 millimeter monofilament line to rig up all the actual throttle cables and rudder cables and everything else, and also as well as all of the cross bracing cables for the frame of the aircraft, which I'm not going to do because you wouldn't be able to see it, and that is a ton of work. But for the Olympic level modeler, it's absolutely a thing that can be done. In fact, that book with the professionally made models that was given to me on the by Mark from Montana on building the kits from Wingnut Wings shows that they do that, and it's just fantastic. You need the patience of Job, but it is just fantastic work. I am thoroughly impressed. I did get the side framing members on the airplane today, but before I get to that, there's one quick thing about these Wingnut Wings planes I want to mention, and that is the knockout pins. Now, we all know that there are, some people call them knockout pins, some people call them ejector pins. A lot of models have those little divots in them where they have to put the piece that the machine can, so that when they're molded, these little pins come in, knock the styrene out of the machine. Wingnut Wings did something very clever. They put these posts all over the model that you have to clip off, but that means that instead of having a standard ejector pin where this metal pin goes flying into this semi-soft styrene and knocks it out, the styrene itself now actually has these little legs or protrusions, little pins or pegs that it can hit, and it'll take the whole thing out without damaging the model. There's not a single ejector pin mark anywhere on this airplane that I've found because of these. But in order to pull this little trick off, they have to have a lot of these things. And you see here the pile, and that's not all of them. That's just some of the ones so you're gonna do a lot of snipping and clipping to get these things off. And you have to be very careful, especially on the smaller parts. It's really easy to accidentally snip off something you were supposed to leave on. So take that extra second to check the instruction sheet. They have cut markings and everything, all and all of the on the instructions. So if you take your second, the only one I did was I accidentally cut the two throttles on the throttle quadrant off, I cut the heads of the throttles off because they look like little ejector pins, but they're so tiny now you can't see them anyway, so I wasn't going to worry about it. I didn't lose any sleep over that, but it's just one of those things that it shows how much thought Wingnut Wings put into trying to deal with the complaints modelers have. So there's no ejector pin marks, but you are going to snip off a ton of these little ejector pins. And some of them are so perfectly formed that they look like part of the framing. And I actually had two parts when I put the work I've done so far. I had two of them in there that I thought were actually framing members. And when I went back and looked at the instructions, oh, wait a minute, I got to clip those off. And one of them I'd actually glued on because it fit perfectly as an attachment point. So I snipped it off real quick, no harm, no foul. But the quality, again, is really excellent. And I've got it pretty much painted. I still have to put the instrument decals on the instrument panel, and you can see even the yoke goes back and forth, and they tell you not to glue it, and that's probably so you can position pilots in there. I didn't see any figures in this kit, so I assume you buy those separately. I could be wrong, but that's no problem. I'm so busy with what I'm doing. again, you can just tell by this, the interior detail is just incredible. And I'm going to let this harden for a while before I obviously take any more of the clamps off. But fitting this framing member on, these two framing members on each side, given their size, and they were already painted, of course, that no surprise there. That was the only time I had some fitting issues, because you have all these separate sections that are glued together, and as you guys know, the bigger a kit gets, the harder it is to get everything to line up. But still, everything eventually did line up, and I'm just really thrilled with the kit. Hopefully tomorrow I can finish off the whole entire interior of the airplane. Like I say, I'm not going to be rigging it with monofilament line or putting the control cables in. I quite frankly don't have the eyes, the fingers, the skill, or the patience, and that it just is what it is. So tomorrow, if I can finish this section off, we'll be ready to start putting the big external components on. Probably won't shock anybody that putting the airframe and everything together should be a relatively quick procedure, because the parts are very large, big single pieces. Fitting them might be a little bit of a trick, but other than that, and I actually, given the way the rest of the kit's going, a little bit of pre-fitting I've done, I don't even think that's going to be a problem. But I will be making subsections like fuselage, left wing set, right wing set, and so forth, because all this has to be put together. The next super complex build that'll have to be pre-painted and everything is going to be the engines, and they're just as detailed as the interior. But once that's done, pretty much it goes together. I will paint it before I put most of the sub-assemblies together, then decal it. The very last thing, of course, will be the rigging, and oh, that's the part I'm really looking forward to. But you know what? And there are some areas on the wings that do have turnbuckles, so some of the areas of the hull don't, but there are a lot of areas that do, so I'll decide if I want to go through the extra step of trying to make turnbuckles for it. I've watched a bunch of videos on how it's not the hardest thing on earth, but there's just so many of them. Well, that's where we are on the Felixstowe, and I really haven't worked on anything else. It's obviously has pretty much my full attention. And tomorrow, finish the interior, maybe get some of the exterior fitted. I don't really see this thing slowing down until I start working on the engines. That'll be a bit of a production. There's two of them. One of the things I will say about Wingnut Wings is they pretty much, from what I've seen so far, they have an excellent layout on the way the parts are on the sprues. Most of the parts I've built so far came off of the A sprue. You have 2D sprues, which are almost identical, because you have they have, each one of them has the redundant parts. Like each one of them has propeller, each one of them has an engine, each one of them has a couple of the Lewis guns, and so on and so forth. You do have to use a few parts off the D, and you of course have some of the brass components also that go into this section. But generally speaking, I haven't had too much trouble locating parts, which I was really concerned about given how many sprues there are, but it's pretty logically laid out. The numbers are relatively good flow, certainly as well as they could make it. One of the things you have to be careful of is just the physical size of these sprues. I knocked a couple of things over just turning the sprue around, because it's well, you can see how big they are. They're up on the wall there. And I've actually started doing this, actually keeping the sprues laid up against the wall where I can see them. It makes it a little easier to go, okay, that's the part I need, a couple of them lined up down here out of camera view. But that's just something I've sort of started doing as I started building the model. You're gonna, as I suspected, you're gonna need a lot of space to build this thing. No shock there, we all knew that was gonna happen. I do not think I have anything else for this evening. That was what I want to talk about. Once again, thanks to Mr. Eyrich for the book. And we will see you guys later. Hope you have time this evening to relax and have a cold one or hot one or whatever your beverage of preference is, and relax and enjoy the evening. We're having magnificent weather down here in Florida. I did not have to run the air conditioner. Hallelujah. It's just the nicest day to have the time off to just sit back and build. So you guys take care. Again, I probably won't have any morning shows for a while. I've got things going on. But I should have an evening show tomorrow evening, show you the progress. And Actually, to be quite candid, aside from other things I have going on in the morning, it takes longer than you might think to crank out the morning show. It only takes 15, 20, 30 minutes to shoot the thing, but sometimes I spend an hour or two on the computer just processing because my computer's getting old. I actually loaded an older version of the program with less capability because it runs faster, but it still eats up an hour or better, and since that time has to be committed to other things, I sometimes get out here a little bit quicker and can get more work done. I was actually fairly productive today. Of course, this is very, as you can guess, between waiting for paint to dry and glue to harden and everything, all the fine little parts you're dealing with. This is very time consuming. It's amazing how you sit down with a couple of parts, and by the time you get them painted, and I'm using acrylic so it dries quickly, and you get everything sanded and get all the burrs off of it and get it in place and pre-fitted, and okay, that's good. A little glue, the glue comes back, hours gone. Amazing. Well, what else we got going on? That's it. At this point, I am sure I have covered everything I wanted to cover today, so I will let you guys go and enjoy your evening, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow evening, and let's keep a good thought for the live stream, 2 o'clock Saturday. You guys, appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're having a wonderful evening, and model on. I don't want anybody complaining that I'm drinking Mick Ultra. It's low carb, okay?